Everyone, please welcome from the Travel Channel's Kindred Spirits, Amy Bruni and Adam Berry. Hello, guys. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad that we could have the two of you on the podcast. So let's go ahead and jump right into the conversation. So many people, they are so fascinated now by paranormal experiences. But why is that? Like Adam and Amy, what do you feel really makes this very interesting to the viewer?
Geez, I mean, I think that, well, ghosts have fascinated people for a very long time. But I do think in more recent years and months, people, it's kind of morbid to think about, but people have thought a lot about their own mortality these last few years. We lived through a pandemic, and it really has upped the interest in shows like ours, especially shows like ours that are kind of more compassionate and empathetic to ghosts. And so we've definitely seen an uptick in paranormal interest and paranormal activity.
Now, Amy and Adam, when did you first have the feeling or connection, to the paranormal world? Like, what led the both of you to be paranormal investigators, especially for this show?
Oh my God. Well, I know Amy's story. You can read it in her book.
Great plug.
If we start talking our origin story, it's going to be like, that's all this interview is going to be. But I mean, I grew up in a house that had ghosts. Mm-hmm. So did Amy. We both had experiences as a kid. And, we decided, Amy decided to leave a normal corporate job to hunt ghosts for a living. So that's how it works.
Well, okay, so I was a paranormal investigator for years before that, but it was something that I kind of did on the weekends. And so I did have a very normal corporate job for a project management company. And when I wasn't working, I was looking for ghosts. And so then eventually I met Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters, and we just hit it off. And they asked me to come out and do a couple cases, and then I never went home. So that's how I ended up doing it on television. But I was active in the paranormal field well before cameras started rolling, thankfully.
That is so cool, you guys. And look at you now. Season 7 of Kindred Spirits. Did you ever think this show would last this long going into 7? I mean, so many viewers are so fascinated by this type of stuff. I think that's why it's continued to last so long. And then hearing the stories that are told on each episode.
We never really know. Never really know. Honestly, we love doing what we do, right? And we love showing people how we do it. And a goal for Kindred Spirits was to show an investigation in its complete form from start to finish and talk about the stories of the families and the spirits we're trying to contact. So, we've done that. And as long as people are continuing to watch and tune in and supporting us, we're going to do it we're going to be like in wheelchairs, rolling each other down hallways in asylums, like looking for each other at that point, because we'll be lost.
Well, and I think it's important to note too, this has always kind of been the little show that could. Like we've been on, I think, 4 networks now. Like we were on TLC, and then we were on our Destination America, and then we were on Travel, and we were on Discovery Plus, and so it's just been like people will find us wherever we go. And I think that to us has been like the most kind of fascinating part of this whole journey, is that there's always these little curveballs, but every time we're like, we're going to keep going.
Yeah, we can do it.
Keep expanding. I love it. Has there ever been a type of spirit that has really affected the both of you as far as their ability to be able to communicate with you?
I think any spirit that's a hard question. So if you think of a spirit like we do from a human standpoint, we humanize our ghosts. I think for me, it's anyone who is lost, lonely, sad. I think back, the Executioner House episode where the old lady was in the second floor, and she thought, people thought it was like a crazy demon, and it wasn't. It was this sweet old lady trying to like understand why she was still here, and that's sad to me.
Amy?
Yeah, I think when we I always look back on when we talked to Lisbeth Borden at Maplecroft at her house that she ended up buying after she was acquitted of the murders. She changed her name to Lisbeth. She lived in that house for 36 years and died in that house. And we had some very real conversations with her, and at the end of that, we were like, is this person really an axe murderer? Like and so it's just things like that I find fascinating when we can kind of get information that corresponds with history or points us in directions that we didn't even know existed in the first place.
There's so much history and knowledge that really goes into each episode of Kindred Spirits, but how much preparation now does it take to start a new investigation each time, Amy?
Okay, so one of the big differences with Kindred versus like when we were way back with Ghost Hunters is that we try to do some pre-research. So we go in with kind of a general idea of the history of the location, but just enough to kind of get us through that first night, but we don't want that to kind of be the focus of our investigation. And so really, there is prep involved so we can know what we're getting into and who we're talking to and what's going on there. But a lot of times the investigation just leads us in a completely different direction. And so we just kind of let it flow organically from that point, but we definitely do try to do some initial research and interviews before we even get there.
Now, Adam, as each person tells their paranormal activity story per episode, has there ever been one that has really just had you and Amy speechless as you've listened to it and you thought, what the heck is going on up in here?
Every time.
Every episode.
I think every time. Every time. Yeah, because by the time, I mean, if you think about it, we get contacted, constantly all the time through social media or emails about people wanting us to come and investigate their house because they need help or understanding. And if you get chosen for the show, I mean, you're in dire straits. Most of the time, they're at their wits' end. And so when we show up, not only are some of these families very desperate for answers, but the activity that they're experiencing are crazy. Like I think on this case, this season of Kindred Spirits, there's a family that we help where things are being thrown around the room or moved, and large bangs are happening. And I think even there was like a child that was like pulled out of their bed. And so like that's weird. That's like Hollywood stuff, these Hollywood stories. So we have to kind of figure out, what the reality of the situation actually is and give them answers.
Now, what would be your answer to the people that tune in, they watch, and they think, this doesn't seem real. This is not real. How could this possibly be real?
Yeah, well, we gave up trying to prove the existence of ghosts to skeptics a long time ago. You have to let that go at some point. It's really easy to get defensive about something that you believe so passionately in. But by the same token, like that's not doing anyone any good. If you find yourself trying to justify the existence of ghosts to someone who's that adamant and not believing, they're not really worth your time. But I'm also like, I love when people watch our show to pick it apart because they're watching, and so we have their viewership and we welcome people to watch it and pick it apart. It's very easy to pick apart paranormal television. And we know that because people are seeing 43 minutes of something that took us 4 or 5 days to complete. And so, of course, there's going to be holes. Of course, there's going to be things that, answer or questions that you don't get answered in that little bit of time. But we find most of our viewers, they trust us, and they should, because I would say that we're both very much on the level, but understand completely when people are skeptical. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, just to add really quick, what I find with Kindred Spirits is you have, a couple, for instance, and one of them loves the paranormal, the other one doesn't, but loves history. And so they still love the show because, it's like my husband doesn't believe in ghosts, but he watches it with me because he loves the locations that you're doing. He loves the history that you uncover. And, we watch it as a family. And so our show has a lot of different things that appeal to a lot of different people. And I think that's why. And I think that's why people tune in. So if you love ghosts, you're going to love the show. If you don't like ghosts and you like history, you're going to love the show. If you don't like either of that, then you will just like us. And then you'll like the show.
The real Ghostbusters team right here, Amy and Adam. Except Chip. Where's Chip? Poor Chip. We wish Chip could be here, but Chip is
I know. He's
lovely spirit.
Probably in the bunker right now. Apparently there's tornado watches where he is in the south. I know he has a storm shelter. He has talked about it. He's probably down
He's
there just
doing this. There's a
he's like going, there's tornadoes.
tornado.
He's definitely sheltering.
Oh my goodness. Well, now let's talk more, you guys, about the 7th season of Kindred Spirits. So, in the second episode of season 7, the St. James Hotel in 1826, oh my goodness, so long ago, a mom and her 6 kids were killed in a fire in the original house that was located where the historical museum is now. When you first began your research on this site, did you have any expectations, or do you try not to think too much about what may be inside there?
Wow, that was a tough one. We definitely, like, the history was hard to process in that location. And it's very well documented as far as that fire goes. But then on top of that, it's a museum, and there are a ton of artifacts there relating to the local history there, but also spiritualism. And so there were just so many things that could be causing the haunting there that it was very daunting. But yeah, it was hard not to be affected by the history that we knew. And yes, you have to really not let that guide your investigation. You have to go in like kind of with a clean slate and let the ghosts do the talking.
Mm-hmm.
Adam, you want to add?
Well, I think the thing is, you hear something that's so tragic like that. It's not, you hear of a tragedy, and normally your mind would go immediately to those children and that mother, and you're like, well, yeah, they're the ones in the house. But we can't ever think that. We have to take all the bits and pieces and then clean slate the environment, meaning that we go in and just observe and explore and see what matches up the actual history. I think what's really cool about that case, though, when you see that episode, we use the town to get answers about that place. And that sounds weird, but the entire block was owned by the Historical Society. And so there were numerous buildings on that block that were haunted. And so Amy and I did something we've done before, where we went down the street and asked a spirit named Sybil if she knew anything. And you'll have to tune in, because that was probably one of the coolest experiences we've ever had on Kindred Spirits.
Absolutely. That's probably my favorite case this season.
It's amazing.
But that was like it was very personal for us, because it was where like spiritualism was born. Like we visited the Fox sisters cabin and stuff while we were there. So it was just a really cool case.
Another cool part about this case was when Heather first walked into the medical room, she immediately felt the presence, like the weight on her shoulders of something, and she knew that the medical bag was connected to the experiences people, were having in that room. So can you explain how objects now can really hold on to energy or give off a feeling?
I mean, that's something that we've known for quite a while. We've had a few cases in the past that are centered around objects. And, Heather was a former, I guess, client of ours, you should say. We went and helped her with a house that she owns called Greystone Manor. And we were just blown away by her abilities to kind of, pick up objects and know what they were or where they came from. And so, yeah, she was perfect for that case. And it was absolutely insane how she honed in on that bag and how we were able to confirm what went on with that bag. It was pretty wild.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, I don't know if you see it on the episode, but she gets these, I don't know how she does it. She gets these feelings even before she knows she's going to go on a case or anything. She gets these feelings. She sits down at her desk and she writes all of this information out. And I have both of the pieces of paper, which I will post after the episode airs, but it's literally things that we find out, things that we have no clue about. And then she's written like one sentence about it. Wow. Or like her feelings about a certain location. And she's like, and so when she references, I wrote this down before I even knew, like she's bonkers. She's bonkers. Mm-hmm. Her and Chip Coffee together, we should get her and Chip Coffee together on a case, because it would be an atomic psychic bomb.
It would be spellbinding. The episode would explode with greatness.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's TVs would just...
The TV would explode. And by the way, once the medical bag was removed out of the room, she said that she felt a weight lifted off of her shoulders, which I was like, oh, very interesting that was really, I guess, the thing inside the room that was causing her to feel some sort of way. was the medical
Well,
bag.
spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode,
Mhm.
stop 5 minutes ago and watch the episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean
know, right?
that's so, but that's how we confirm an item has to do with a haunting is we remove it
Hmm.
and see what happens, or we put it somewhere else and see if the same activity happens near it. And so, anyone at home who thinks something they have is haunted, try that out.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did it with a trunk at a case in Florida. We moved the trunk to a different room and got activity around it.
Huh.
We knew it was trunk. Yeah.
Wow. So there could be items in your home, you guys, that could be making your house haunted. So, and that leads me into this last question for the both of you, Adam and Amy. For anyone watching or wondering if a spirit is living inside of their home, what are the first few signs that spirit is inside your house? It could be an item, as we just said.
Mm.
I mean, I would say don't think about it too much. Because
Mhm.
if you start thinking about it too much, that little knock or that little mouse in your attic is immediately going to be a ghost. I'd say, live your life. And if you see a full body apparition walk through your kitchen, then congratulations, your house is haunted.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that it's very easy. I think sometimes we forget that there are very explainable things that go on, but I really do think it just depends on the level of activity in your house. If this is something that's frightening you and it's happening a lot, or like your kids are getting scared, it might be time to start talking to it. We always say like talk to a ghost like you would talk to anyone in your
Mhm.
house who's bothering you, and or anyone who's bothering you. You don't necessarily have to be mean, but maybe just explain your side because probably no one has before. So that's a great first step.
Now, real quick, before we have to close out the interview, I'm just curious to know, before you made this a lifelong career as paranormal investigators, did you have some sort of like paranormal activity when you were a young kid? Because I think us as kids, or at least me myself in elementary school, there was word going around in the school that there was a ghost in the bathroom. Something I think, probably cheesy, just, kids being kids. But did you have an experience with spirit before making this, like I said, a lifelong career?
Oh, I think we both had
Yeah.
experiences as children. But I always tell people that to be very realistic about your experiences as children too, because
Mhm.
like you were saying, it's very easy to be at a slumber party with a Ouija board and years later say there was a demon there, but there were really like 6 9-year-old girls there, and so of course there was a demon. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
It's very easy to be swayed when you're in those sorts of situations. Um, and so we always try to just kind of like always be realistic about your childhood
Mhm.
experiences, but if you believe in the idea of ghosts and spirits, start putting that belief system on your current experiences rather than relying on those ones as we were kids, because we are really good at misremembering childhood things.
Yeah. And I think we both got lucky, Amy and I. I mean, we had experiences as kids, and
Mhm.
instead of being afraid of it and running away from it, we were curious. We wanted to know more
Yeah.
about it. And, here we are. We get to do something that was a hobby as a career. And I mean, that's the best thing we could have asked for.
And look at the growth from the two of you and the growth from the seasons of Kindred Spirits. Like, yes, marvelous.
We each just turned 21 this
Right.
year. We're very excited
Yes.
about finally having a cocktail.
About time.
Thank you so much, Adam and Amy, for joining us on our podcast. Be sure to catch Kindred Spirits airing Fridays at 9 p.m. on Travel Channel. And you can always catch up on Discovery Plus. I love Discovery Plus. Thank you guys so much. It was a really interesting conversation. Maybe next time we can have Chip join us. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you.
All right, bye.